losing 125 million a season. Did you know the financial position when you took the job?
What we totally lacked was a vision of where we were going. And now we win 2 Constructors' Championships back to back. I didn't like some of the ways we jousted because that's not who I am. I've got 2 drivers. Get along great.
And there hasn't been a huge fallout.
Well,
Never fear a storm.
Be ready to adapt.
The skill is staying true to ourselves.
Well, Zach, welcome back to High Performance.
thanks for having me on.
Can we rewind the clock to the day that you walked through the famous glass doors of the McLaren Technology Centre as their new CEO?
I was mega excited, and I came in actually as an executive director, but as the boss, so to speak. What I quickly found, well, it wasn't even that quickly because I had to kind of unwind this whole Honda thing. What I quickly found was grumpy sponsors, grumpy fans, grumpy employees. Other than that, everything was great. And everything kind of pointed at it's Honda's fault. That's what I walked into.
Yeah.
As you started to unpick that, it was like, I'm not so sure how we treat our partners has anything to do with that. I'm not sure the lack of transparency with our employee. Like you start unpicking it, and it's like, okay, yes, we had issues with the engine, and that definitely contributed to our lack of on-track performance. But you go put the Renault in, which was a more advanced engine, and we go to P6, not P1. So it's like, okay, now what's the problem? Because we're not a P6 team, and clearly we've just put an engine in the back that's been winning a lot of races with, Red Bull not long ago. And so what I did know we have was a great brand with a great history that, and we must have had, which turns out we did, lots of great people because there's a lot of championships and race wins in that building. What we totally lacked was leadership and a vision of where we were going. And that's what we were able to kind of put together that's built all this momentum.
And it's fair to say that some people doubted you when you got that job. You write really nicely in the book about Bernie Ecclestone having a bet with you, yeah?
Yeah. 2 years, you take the over-under. And he's always been a great character.
Did he say you wouldn't last 2 years?
Yeah, I wouldn't last 2 years. He wouldn't last 2 years.
Did he pay out on the bet?
No, we should have actually made a bet, but I'm not sure I would have bet against him. I mean, because if you think about it, prior to myself joining, you kind of had 5 different leaders, right?
Yeah.
You had Ron had kind of stepped aside from the day-to-day leadership of the team. Then you had Martin in, then you had Ron back in, and then they hired Eric, and then they hired Yost. And forget about those individual people. Some of them really good, some of them not. But beyond that, what racing team, sports team, or even business can survive a who's the boss this week? And so that was what really needed to be fixed, was bring stability and leadership, not just me, but the leadership team. So the team we could set some direction and guidance and get everyone kind of rowing the same direction.
And it's fair to say that there were some financial challenges.
Yeah.
Did you know the financial position when you took the job?
No. I knew we were losing a lot of money because I'd seen the books, but I didn't know how bad. And then when we took the decision to leave Honda, that dug another hole, right? Because that was fiscally a very lucrative deal, free engines, a lot of financial contributions. So we're losing money, we're struggling, and then we take a conscious decision to let's dig a deeper hole because we need to dig out of this. And that was huge. And then when we put the new engine in and it wasn't lights on, we're back on the front, it took a lot of time to rebuild. But I always had a lot of comfort from Paul Walsh, my chairman, and Mum Telecat, the owners, that as dire as things were, and they wouldn't let things go south. So even though I was staring at the light at the end of the tunnel and not the good light, I ultimately had confidence in Mumtalakat and Paul Walsh that we would get through it, and we did.
And just to be really clear for people, you write in the book about the numbers. I mean, it was losing 125 million a season.
Yeah, a lot of money.
And to get through the financial challenges that came your way, you worked out you needed to find 185 million.
Correct. And ultimately, then you had COVID hit, which didn't make anyone's life any easier, financially. And so what the shareholders decided, because they're racers, they want to win. They're in this they love the brand, they love winning. And they ultimately, because they had a lot of investment going into automotive, was we'd rather own the majority of the racing team and sell a minority stake to fully fund our business plan than live within our means, which would be not funding what we need. And then that in Formula One, that's just a slow death, isn't it? If you can't compete at the front, you're just, you live within your means, but then you don't get the results. You get less sponsorship, you get less prize money. Now you got to lower again. And you eventually just starve yourself of oxygen. So they took let's play offense. Let's go raise the money necessary to give this team every opportunity. That's what we did. And then not long ago, they announced that they, along with Sivan from Abu Dhabi, bought it back, and happy days.
I think there's a quote from the book that Damian wants to read out about what you were like at school. Are you? Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a cracking quote.
If you'd seen me at school, you'd think I'm going to be a bust. You'd think I'm going to amount to nothing. I am troubled.
Yeah, that was one of my report cards is in there. I wish we would have put in the one that had some handwritten notes, from the teachers. And one was great. I really like Zach. I want Zach to succeed. What's wrong?
But that's what fascinated us, was like the disconnect between this guy who was told at school it isn't going to work out for you, and also we should talk about sort of the aggressive side of your life at school and the trouble you got yourself into. How does that marry up with this guy that walks into a business, failing on the track, failing off the track, difficult challenges in terms of the culture at the business, difficult financial situation, and turn it around? It makes me wonder whether we just write people off too early in life sometimes.
I think in my case, it's interesting. I kind of learned a lot about myself writing the book, reflecting, and I've always had massive passion. I always had massive energy. I've always wanted to kind of get ahead. And I think what I didn't get in school was, other than baseball, which I got an A in, and work experience, funny enough, I didn't have a passion for those subjects. And so I didn't care. It wasn't like I failed at school because I tried really hard, studied, and couldn't do it. I just didn't show up. I just wasn't interested. So I think I've always been massively passionate about baseball or ice hockey or motor racing. Now I think I've matured, but I was always massively passionate and wanted to kind of hustle, and I was always on the move. I always had a lot of energy. I always liked to have fun. There wasn't anything that kept me entertained at school. It was baseball and racing and other sports, and I think that's why I kind of checked out and focused on that stuff so early. I would have continued in baseball. I was quite good in baseball, but someone pointed out to me, Zach, if you want to be on the high school baseball team, you have to go high school.
So if we spun it then, so rather than ask how clever are you, if we spun it and asked how are you clever, what would you have answered at school?
I was always pretty good at figuring out how to be entrepreneurial. Now I use that in a more business sense. I think entrepreneurial, when you're a punk kid, you're kind of wheeling and dealing and talking your way out of getting in trouble with the principal or your family, or, but ducking and diving. I don't think I duck and dive today. I think today it's more business entrepreneurial is how I would phrase it. But I think always being on the go, always kind of hustling, always wheeling and dealing. And that's kind of what you do today, right? You're working with your partners and you're wheeling and dealing, or whether it's with your team, you're just, so I've always been high energy. I've just found something that I'm absolutely been in love with for a long time.
So how did that inform the way that you managed when you walked in through the door at McLaren? Because you would have had two not very happy drivers to look after. You would have had people in the engineering and the design team, people in the marketing team, people who are traveling to races, giving their lives to this team, and it was failing, right? How did you decide what the first thing was that you had to do to try and turn McLaren around?
I knew, so when I came in, I came in with the, let me just kind of learn, while I was comfortable with 1,400 employees, because my previous company, that was about the same size. And I was very comfortable with the racing. I was very uncomfortable with the racing team because I'm not technical, and it's such a technical sport. I was like, I'm not going to be able to sit in technical meetings and even know what these guys and gals are saying. I have no idea. So that was quite intimidating. The commercial side I was very comfortable with. So the first thing I did was kind of assess the leadership team and recognized I needed to make some changes there.
And when you're doing that, how do you know whether you need to make a change or whether someone can actually be turned around, if that makes sense?
Yeah, well, so a couple of people on the leadership team were promoted because I actually thought, and have been proven right.
Yeah. But what are you looking for?
I'm looking for, do we speak the same language? Do we run at the same pace? Do we have the same passion? Do we think creatively? Do we think entrepreneurially? Are we prepared to do things differently? And I could tell after kind of working with all of them, very successful people, a couple people left, kind of, hey, I know there's going to be a regime change here. So it wasn't personal, and there were some superstars there, but, we needed to kind of do things a new way. So made a variety of changes. There wasn't anyone from the leadership team that's on the leadership team today. Laura and Louise were both promoted. One, Laura CFO, Lou is our CMO. They are brilliant. So those were the only two people that were inside McLaren. Then I brought in a few people I'd worked with at my previous company, and then some headhunters. Helped me find, Daniel, our head of HR, et cetera. And I put together this awesome team. I mean, I love them. And we all love working together. And we challenge each other. They're all workaholics,
Are you?
Yeah, definitely. So we're pinging emails kind of 24/7. If we need to do a call on a Saturday, Sunday, like no problem. They, often they're calling me and it's like, hey, it's Saturday. I'm like, well, yeah, but you said call. And so, I think you have to get everyone rowing the same direction, have the same amount of energy. Then I think they're really awesome experts in their disciplines. And I think sometimes when you have a company where people have been around for a while, sometimes they get put in positions because they were kind of there, or if they've been there too long, they don't have enough perspective so I wanted some, Daniel came from football and airports. What I liked about that HR is airports are frantic. Someone's always yelling and screaming. It's 24/7. So I like the energy of kind of what's going on in an airport. And then he worked on a football team, so he knew how to deal with players and trainers and owners. And so you kind of looked at, that's a perspective we don't have from inside here right now. So I brought in a bunch of people from kind of different skill sets. We challenge each other. We have difference of opinions. But once we align, even if the alignment is, actually, I would have done it a little bit differently, but I'm going with the group, you'd never know when we walk out the door who would have voted what direction. And I think that's the sign of a really united team. And then once you start setting direction and they can get their respective leadership teams acting in the same way, you get the whole organization going, yeah, we like where we're going. And it's amazing. I know we'll eventually come on to it. 2023, we have the worst car on the grid, second worst car on the grid, make a few leadership changes, and now we win 2 constructors championships back to back. Same wind tunnel, same drivers, 98% same people, some different leadership, and a new culture and ways of working. Look at the difference. As I say in Formula One, even the worst team is great, right? I mean, the competition in Formula One is immense. So if you don't kind of run fast, I've got a phrase in there. We kind of use the DEFCON system, which Daniel, our head of HR, at first was like, Zach, I'm not sure. I love DEFCON system. That's like nuclear war. It's like, well, but everyone kind of knows what I mean, right? So DEFCON 5 is kind of sitting back. There's no DEFCON 5, right? If you think about a pit crew, the helmet's always on. They're always ready for a pit stop. And that's kind of the energy, the passion that I think any business needs to have. Forget about whether it's Formula One or a business, right? Because all these businesses are massively competitive. And so you got to have a burning desire to want to win, get up every day, dust yourself off when you've crashed or had a bad day, because we all have them and we're going to have them again in the future. But I think it's that energy and fun is something that I think is a key ingredient, at least in my style, because if you're going to kind of get people to hustle and be pretty hard on them, you kind of need to do it with a little bit of a smile and a little bit of love. Otherwise, it's like, man, this guy's just on me all the time.
But can I ask you, Zach, like, how do you protect your energy? Because you described how it's the leadership team that have turned performance around. That's something that needs to be protected as well as nurtured. How do you go about doing that?
I get a lot of energy from other people, whether it's our fans, our partners, our employees. I like sitting down and having conversations with. I get energy from people, and I think hopefully they get energy from me. And we all kind of share a common goal. We know it's not easy, and I think over the years I've learned the power of family and friends and how important it is that they come along on the journey. So we just did at McLaren a family day. We had 4,000 people out, and it was awesome to see the energy and the appreciation of the families, because we all live on the road and get to go race in Monaco, but you sometimes take for granted that actually, I mean, I've missed birthdays and holidays, and sometimes, that's what business does, but you're never happy about it. You look back on it. So to be able to share how cool our job is and our life with their families, I think gave them a lot of energy and just created a big buzz at the MTC.
And there'll be a lot of people listening to this that maybe you're thinking about, like hearing about the dynamic of your leadership team that you have. And you said that we learn to disagree agreeably. Can you tell us how you go about doing that?
Yeah, so I'll, depending on what the topic is, I'll come with a view. Sometimes I'll lead with the view. Sometimes I'll wait to see others. But, and I can feel pretty strongly about a view, and I can walk out of that room, change my mind because they changed my mind. I don't have a kind of pride of authorship or it's my idea. I don't care whose idea it is. I just want the right idea. So if we're going to go through a topic, I might put something on the table to get the conversation going. I want to hear from everybody and really hear from them, not kind of like I want to pretend I'm listening so I can we're going to do what I said. And it took a little bit of time for my leadership team, those that hadn't been around me long, to be comfortable challenging me. And I'm disappointed if they don't challenge me. So now they have no problem challenging me. I just got off a call and I was like, hey, steady, I'm your boss.
But can you give us an example then of where you've changed your mind on something down to that challenge?
I do it a lot. Whether it's a commercial on a sponsorship arrangement, and Matt and Nick are coming to me saying, we think we should structure it this way. I'm not so sure. And it's like, I'll follow your lead. Lou on the brand side, I'll kind of come up because I'm not creative, but I think I'm creative. And that's what they all tell me. So I'll come in with what about, this idea of doing this at a fan, or on the comms side. And, I always want to share. And my comms team will kind of have to be like, Zach, be careful because here's another way people could look at that. So there's lots of, so it's almost kind of daily. And then there's times where if I feel really firm on something, I'll listen to everyone and I'll say, heard you, but we're going to do it this way and here's why. And they'll get on board. And then if I've got it wrong, I'll say, hey, you know what? I got that wrong. I can't remember the last time that happened now.
You know how much I love Formula One, and we know that you love the Formula One conversations here on High Performance. But the truth is that high performance in F1 isn't just what happens on the track. It's also about consistency. It's about identity. And you know what? Style works the same way, because the clothes that you wear, they become part of your story. They're the reason that you stand out. And that is why we're so excited to partner with Vestiaire Collective for the launch of their first ever menswear experience. You can now find a curated selection of standout menswear. That's Cartier watches, Louis Vuitton bags, Gucci sneakers, Burberry jackets, all available at up to 80% off retail. And it also goes the other way. If you think it's time to change up your wardrobe, you can sell your own pre-loved treasures with low fees while giving them a new lease of life. And with more than 15 years of authentication expertise, Vestiaire Collective makes buying and selling simple, stylish, and secure. Honestly, I think it's fantastic. Vestiaire Collective, the go-to destination for pre-loved premium menswear styles. To get involved, just click the link in the description to buy or sell men's pre-loved fashion. This episode of High Performance is brought to you by Sage and their AI-powered productivity assistant, Sage Copilot. Now, this is where Sage is bringing their 40 plus years of experience into the world of AI to help businesses like yours solve some of your biggest challenges in a way that's actually useful and not overwhelming. So if you're a small or medium-sized business and you need some extra help managing cash flow, chasing payments, or filing VAT, Sage Copilot is the answer. Take payment chasing, for example, right? Sage customers can get paid 7 days faster with Sage Copilot because it does the chasing for you with automatic invoice reminders at the click of a button. Get started for free. Search Sage Accounting. One of the things that comes through on the book that I like is the importance of also knowing when not to talk.
Yeah.
And there's this great line where you say that Tom Stallard, one of the race engineers, says to you, Zach, you're brilliant on the pit wall. And at this point, Zach's going, oh, really? What do I do that's so good? And Tom goes, well, you don't speak. And I think knowing when not to talk is such an important skill in leadership. So would you take us through like what you see your role as during a race?
Yeah, so it was a funny conversation with Tom. I think leaders need to know how to communicate, but communicating isn't just talking, it's listening. I also think leaders need to know when to lead and when to follow. And you can lead by following, let others lead. And so I think those are important characteristics. With the racing team, I feel like I work for the racing team. They don't work for me. I'm here to help Tom Stallard be the best engineer he can be, or Randy to be the best strategist, or Andrea to be the best team principal. So I feel much at a race weekend, what can I do to help you? And I'm not going to be able to help Tom in the middle of a race on something that's engineering or strategy. So I'm going to shut up. That's the best thing I can do, is not be a distraction, or, as I've seen others do, get on the radio because, Netflix is listening and I want to make it look like I'm calling the pit stop stretch. So last thing I want to do is be something that I'm not to other people and have my own team look at me and be like, that's not what Zach does. He's just acting.
That's ego-driven, right?
That's ego-driven. That is just, I'm. And so when I started at McLaren, I wanted to make sure I built the loyalty and the trust of the racing team. So the last thing I was going to do was come out with something where it's like, oh God, here we go again. Yeah. And so that respect that I have for them and their roles, and knowing I can't do everyone's job. I can do some of what we do at McLaren. There's a lot I can't do. So I'm not going to pretend I can do all things. My job is to build the best team, not to be the guy who does it all. And so that's what I'm most proud of, is the people that I've been able to recruit or help grow or get work together, bringing the team together. To me, that is super exciting. So on the pit wall, I only talk to Andrea, and it's usually more questions. I'm not giving him any advice. I'll throw something out there. I saw this, thought about that, but I just stand back at a race weekend and there to make sure I support everyone. The work that I'm doing is more with our sponsors and our fans and just making sure we've got a good environment. I do lean into the drivers quite a bit. That's an area I'm very comfortable, but again, not on kind of giving them technical talks on how to enhance the race car. That's Andrea. I'm trying to bring an environment of fun, trust, hard work, so everyone can feel good about going racing. And what we've got going on right now, 4 races to go, we're getting all these commentary on what we should be doing or not doing or favoring or not favoring, or we are favoring. We've got 2 drivers who get along great, 1 point from each other, 4 races to go. Pretty awesome. So, I kind of feel like a mama bear at times because the commentary out there, especially on social media, is brutal, but it's uninformed. It doesn't bother me, but I'm sure it bothers others inside McLaren. So I want to kind of protect them from all that noise and, let the lightning rods come my way. You guys just stay focused on what you're doing because you're doing a great job. Ignore what everyone's saying. Fact of the matter is we're 1-2 in the championship. Got this Max guy chasing us who's not far away, but we're sticking to our racing values.
So how have you done this then? How have you got 2 drivers with a handful of races to the end of the season, separated by 1 point, with a 4-time champion chasing them down and getting closer every weekend, and there hasn't been a huge fallout?
Yeah, there hasn't even been a fallout.
Has there not been anything?
Nope. Now,
Even after the little touch in Singapore?
not between them.
Really?
Yeah, they not once. You know when you can walk into a room and you can kind of feel the tension?
Yeah.
Not once. Not once, even when they've touched each other. They may not have been totally aligned around what Andrea and I and the team have, come up with but they've never done. Lando did that. Oscar did that. Anytime they get grumpy, it's a little bit actually towards me and Andrea, because we're trying to be, fair and balanced. And I think the fact that they've both been a little bit grumpy at times with us actually tells you things have been fair and balanced, because, we're trying to make sure they race clean, and they are, all the incidents that they've had, which isn't that many, have all just been kind of, at the end of the day, racing incidents. But we want to kind of make sure the championship's decided on the track and not through that. I think we're lucky that we have the 2 drivers that we have. I'm not sure that Andrea and I and the team would be able to manage other drivers in the way we can Oscar and Lando. So I think a lot of credit due to just who they are as individuals. And that's part of our kind of recruiting process of drivers, is character, and do they think like us? And we talk about the elephant in the room all the time. We have massive communications, transparency. We talk about it all the time. So it's not one of these things like, oh, let's pretend it's not.
And is Max the elephant in the room at the moment?
No, elephant room more being, you guys both want to beat each other, and you guys like each other. But I know from once having driven, the first thing Oscar's got to be doing when he sees the time machine is, where's Lando? And then when Lando comes in, the first thing he's got to be going is, where's Oscar? Like, of course.
So tell us about that meeting then. What do you do to...
Well, we have it all the time. We do it going into a race weekend. We do it Sunday morning after we know qualifying, so we can talk about tire strategies. You don't want to surprise the driver in the race with some piece of information that's new. So hopefully you've discussed, hey, if this happens, we might look to do this. So they don't feel surprised. They have a tremendous amount of trust with us because we've never broken their trust. We have a tremendous amount of trust with them because they've never broken our trust. So we just talk those things through. It was interesting when we had Daniel, Carlos join us from other teams. I'd say, how often did you, do the dinner with Team Boss? Once a year. Once a year. I'm like, golfing with Lando all the time, dinner with Oscar, going to drive. Like, I was surprised how transactional some of the relationships have been between racing driver and Team Boss at some other teams. I'm sure that's not how every team is, but when I asked, I was just surprised there wasn't like a real close relationship. I'm talking to Lando and Oscar every week. I'm trading texts with them, if not every day, every couple days. I've probably done 15 rounds of golf with Lando, been out driving race cars with Oscar. And so there's a real relationship there, great communication. And I think, to me, it's been difficult in the sense of the whole world is looking on us, but nothing's been difficult with Lando, Oscar, and Andrea. And I would sit down, we're all on the same page.
I think what's really interesting here is that it sounds to us like you've totally normalized having big conversations about big things with your drivers.
Yeah, I think it's funny. I've learned something that you just picked up on. Glad my book kind of worked. But to your point, it's a difficult conversation.
Yeah.
We're totally comfortable with it.
But it's only difficult if you never have it. If you have these conversations every single week and you say, how are you feeling about the fact your teammate's 1 point behind you? It doesn't blindside them because this is the open communication that you've created.
Communication, transparency, fairness. And that's what we've done with the racing team. I'd rather over-communicate. We stand up, and we've had a few people join us from other teams who were surprised at how open Andrea is with the entire racing team when we do debriefs, technical information, et cetera. we trust everyone in the racing team. And to have, we've got 1,400 people in total, not all of those in F1, to be able to be confident and go, look, you're not letting me down if something leaves this building, but you're letting your teammate down. And so the respect everyone has for McLaren and our teammates, and the more trusting they are with us, the more trusting we are with them, and it just kind of feeds a bond. And because the more information they have, ultimately, the better they can do in their job. And we've also made sure that everybody understands how important they are to the success of our racing team. So, and what I mean by that is everyone kind of, well, the race car is mega, and the race car is mega. And the people that have touched and designed the race car have done a mega job. But if you kind of look at what has to happen first, you have to have unbelievable fans. You have a great communications team, because that's how you're talking to them. Who then you have to have a great brand team led by Lou, where all the fans feel engaged and heard. Then once you've got that great brand and great fan base, your commercial team steps in to go find the Googles and the MasterCards of the world who want to be part of the McLaren environment, right? So we're not even into the racing department yet. You got to do all that stuff, right? Then we're in a cost cap world, so you have to spend very wisely. You can't just chuck money at problems like you used to be able to pre-cost caps. You got to have an unbelievable finance department. Laura understands Formula One. So, when you get into big investments, it's not, no, don't spend, right? It's like, that's a good investment. That's a good ROI on that. And so you got to have a great finance team. And we've talked all about culture. So you got to have an awesome HR team. Got to have a great general counsel, chief of business affairs, because, we're a big business, right? All that has to happen. And then you hand it over to the race team. Then you got to design and develop, have a great wind tunnel, great technology. And so when everyone understands that when you break the record and you do a 1.8 second pit stop, yes, it's everyone on the guns in the pit stop, but who paid for the guns?
Yeah.
Where did that go? And you can tie everything back. And then this is also why fans are so important to us. It all starts with the fan, right? Yeah. That's where I started. It started with, you got to have awesome fans. And then everything else kind of falls in place in the ecosystem. So I think once everyone knows that, there used to be an us and them between the commercial and the racing department. The racing team now, and the team isn't just that at the track, but back at the back, they know without commercial success, they don't get the tools to be successful. Commercial team knows without the race team being successful, so they need each other. And where that comes to life, which might seem like a small thing, we're all trying to get into weight saving. Used to be when we need to take some, branding off the car, some papaya. So, they're ruining the design of our car. And it's like, well, this just is weight. Now they work together, and they're proud when they can kind of redesign a livery that fits the commercial needs, but fits the racing team's need from a weight standpoint. And they're like holding hands going racing together. And once you create that environment, it's so powerful.
So the whole world, right, has been trying to work out how you and McLaren have done what you've done over the last 24, 36, 48 months, right? And I think you've probably just described it perfectly in the last 5 minutes. Everyone on the outside, on social media, on YouTube, everywhere else, they're looking for chinks in the armor. They're looking for a conflict. They're looking for an issue. They think there's things going on that we're not being told. They can't wait to hear about repercussions for Lando or what. And then what you're describing is under the surface, regardless of what everyone else is thinking and what the world is saying, you've managed to just create stability. In a sport that is famous for instability, it thrives on confrontation and aggression and fallout and silly season and all these other things. And you seem to have quietly just created a real cohesion.
It's been awesome. I'll give you two examples. Both happened in Singapore. And this is how kind of strong I think we are as a team, because we also know when we see something, we'll bring it to each other's attention. So two examples of that. Singapore, we clinched the Constructors' Championship. Lando's on the podium. Oscar's in the media pen, which is down the road. Formula One Impromptu says, get the team up on the podium. First thing when we got up there, Lando and I went, man, Oscar's not up here. This is going to look terrible. But we know how that happened. He's in the media pen. This wasn't something planned. So we get up there and do it. And the first thing Lando and I said was, oh, man, like, where's Oscar? But, of course, the media narrative was Oscar's boycotting. We didn't want him there. And it was like, what are you talking about? And then when I was thanking Oscar on the radio, I didn't see where he was on the track. And he was in Parc Fermé in the process of shutting down the car. So when I was thanking him, it looked like he unplugged, like he hung up the phone on me. It's not what happened. I didn't even notice it. And then you get all the, Oscar's this, that, and Oscar noticed it and went, hey, make sure Zach knows I didn't hear him. So, like, we got each other's back. Like, when we see something and it's not true, we kind of don't care what everybody else thinks, but we care what each other thinks. And so Oscar, when I went, hey, make sure Oscar knows this is how this happened on the podium. And he went, yeah, I figured it out. And then he kind of reciprocated and went, hey, make sure I kind of just saw this. Zach knows I didn't hang up the phone on him.
Is it not draining, though, that the world is desperate for there to be a problem that doesn't exist?
It keeps our comms team on their feet. I think we're in a huge sport. The world's watching us, if you're watching Formula One. It is frustrating because you see stuff that is just so wide of the mark. Yeah. But what really does matter is what our papaya fans, the media that we know are doing a good job, our sponsors, our employees, and our families. That's who matters to us.
What about when it's people who can do your job? And I'm thinking here of the rivalries you've had in the sport. I remember seeing an early episode of Drive to Survive, and I actually quite enjoyed you and Christian sort of locking horns over things.
I've known him a long time. I used to race against him. And, I think sport, there's some rivalries that are healthy, some that are unhealthy, but I kind of put all the rivalry stuff in a different category because there's also an aspect to our sport of trying to destabilize. It's probably one sport, and I wouldn't claim to be an expert on other sports, so maybe I'm wrong here, but the mind games that go into our sport where you're trying to destabilize other teams by creating politics in their own environment, I don't know that they do that as much in football or pick a sport where they're just trying to be the best team they can be and they're just trying to beat the other team on the field. Our sport, you're trying to create lack of stability in other teams, so it's part of the game. So that doesn't bother me, and I kind of put that in a different category. I think that's just how our sport works.
Do you miss him?
He's fun to arm wrestle with. So miss, but I think the sport needs a lot of characters. I mean, what he achieved was remarkable, right? So love him, hate him, whatever. His results were awesome, and I think really strong competitors make you better. I didn't like some of the ways we jousted because that's not who I am. But, kind of going back to racing, you kind of race people the way they race you on track. If they're going to put you 2 wheels off, then you got to put them 2 wheels off. If they're going to put you 4 wheels off, sometimes only way to race them is put 4 wheels off. I'd like to think I'm a 2 wheels off guy, not a 4 wheels off guy. And I had to go 4 wheels off with him a few times.
Yeah. But look at what he did. Look at what you've done at McLaren. But he took that team as a young guy and turned it into
amazing what he accomplished.
The best in the world for a long period of time.
Tons of respect for what he accomplished. You can't take that away from him. And I'm not going to sit here and go, he was lucky. I mean, I now know from having done it twice how damn hard it is. And he did a lot more than twice. So, hats off to him.
Can you give us an example of those mind games have you played them?
Oh, yeah.
Can you give us an example of it?
Yeah, and it was true. When I'd commented that Red Bull, I had a kind of more than normal amount of CVs coming across my desk. I did, but I mentioned it. What does that do? If people were leaving my team and I'm kind of hearing a lot of CVs, I'd be like, hey, I know I don't have a contract with you yet. Are you talking to another team? Right. And now all of a sudden, instead of us having a very healthy, I'm not sure I can totally trust you, and are you telling me? Like, and you start creating some, and then instead of you and I talking about how we're going to go racing next week, I'm like, is he going to leave? Where's he going? And so that's an example of it was true. But I commented on it at a time where we were jousting at each other. But, I think in that environment, if I was, the CEO and I'm kind of see some people leaving and I know there's some kind of lack of stability, that would get me focused not on thinking about my game, but thinking about kind of, well, who's on side here, who's not, are they going to leave? Do I need to start thinking about a replay? And it's a distraction.
On High Performance, our guests often remind us that recovery is the foundation of performance and that sleep is the most powerful tool for our health and success. Yet most of us don't give our sleep enough attention. We spend a third of our lives asleep, yet many of us only think about our mattress when we move house. Imagine the difference if we treated our sleep with the same intention as our training or nutrition, because that's where true performance and health can be unlocked. Using real sleep data, Simba has designed hybrid mattresses that support your spine, reduce motion from your partner, and help you stay cool throughout the night. Simba's innovation has earned them over 100 sleep awards and 6 Which Best Buy titles across their range, including the adjustable hybrid pillow and their cooling duvets, all created to help you achieve your best night's sleep. They offer a 200-night no-quibble trial, a 10-year guarantee, and next-day delivery straight to your door. You don't realise how much better you could be sleeping until you try a Simba. Shop now at simbasleep.com/high-performance. On High Performance, we talk a lot about ownership, about taking charge of the areas of your life that others leave to chance. Because when you step up and lead, you create the outcomes you want. And that's what Hive is here for, to put you in control of your energy. With solar, you can get the sun to work for you by turning sunlight from your roof into greener energy. And the control doesn't stop there. With the Hive app, you can track, manage, and optimize your energy all in one place. Clear, simple, built around you. And this, I think, is the real game changer. When you produce more energy than you need, you can sell it back to the grid, meaning the energy companies are paying you. At High Performance, look, we believe the future belongs to those who take action, and Hive puts that power directly in your hands, in your home. It's your energy, your rules. Hive, know your power. Visit hivehome.com to find out more. Output and savings varies by season, electricity usage and system size. Paid for surplus requires an eligible SEG tariff.
How much of that is strategic as opposed to just in the moment being a bit devilish?
Bit of both. I mean, definitely strategic. The devilish was the fun stuff like the tire water.
Tell us the story of the tire water.
So we were, it was reported that we had some sort of tire water, which is ridiculous because obviously we're really good on.
And this was
tires.
Christian or Red Bull saying you were cooling your tires with water during a Grand Prix.
It was also, and it didn't make Netflix, but again, it was on Netflix as far as Draft One, and it was commentary that, hey, go investigate them. We know they've got some sort of tire water,
right.
And whether they believed that or were just trying to get like, it's crazy, it expands, it's unconventional. Like, I'll give you 50 reasons why that makes no sense. So that was probably a distraction tactic, fair enough, to kind of have everyone kind of come look at our cars and have the FIA and what's that, and, give us hard to distract us. And so that's, I think, a good example of another team doing it to us. And it's kind of fair game. It was totally inaccurate because I thought it was such a ridiculous, of all the things you could pick and choose, it was like, actually, let me kind of come right back at you with a bit of 2 fingers up, if you'd like, with the tire water, but trying to do it in a funny, humorous way of also kind of sending a message of keep trying, but we're focused. I'm gonna make light hard of it as opposed to take it really serious and get angry about it.
Can I also ask you about, we've spoken about this sort of the criticism and the kind of people butting heads in the sport, how much you do listen and learn from some of the criticism that comes your way, whether it's like Japan this year when people said, you know what, you should have just been more aggressive with how you approached it, or Silverstone last year when people thought you got the strategy call wrong, or even last year, should you have sided with Lando early and given him more of a chance to win the world title? when you actually reflect on some of the conversations that are happening online and you think, yeah, maybe there's a bit of truth in that, how do you go about resolving that in not just for you, but for the team?
Yeah, no, we've never, ever said we're perfect. And we listen. We listen to constructive criticism. We listen to, good example of I was hot under the collar when Nico and Oscar touched in Austin. And this guy came on to me 2 seconds later, and I was pissed. I took a step back. I looked at it. I spoke with people. And it was like, I got that wrong. But, I apologized.
Did you go see Nico?
I went and saw Nico. Yeah. I sent Jonathan Wheatley a note immediately saying, I got that wrong. I sent Nico a note. I got that wrong. I went live on air and went, I got that wrong. And then I went and saw Nico on the grid and said, sorry, dude. And then I get criticized for apologizing, and it was like,
who criticized you for apologizing?
Just noise in social. But it was like, yeah, I got it wrong. Yeah. I've never said I'm perfect. I'm human. I can get it wrong, and so we do listen. And in fact, when we lead our debriefs, and I remember one that stuck out with me this year was Spain. We finished first and second, and we opened the debrief with the 10 things that we can improve upon that were close calls. So,
had you done that before, or was that the first time?
Yeah, no, we have, but that was one where it was like, because Spain was a big one, because that was when all the rule changes were coming out, and we were all going to get found out. So we were quite proud to win Spain, because that was everyone was gearing up towards flexi this and flexi that, and the truth's going to come out in Spain. And so that was one. But I remember we sitting down, and instead of like, we showed them, it was like, here's 10 things we could have done better.
Wow. And what was the impact of that on the team, that seeing that level of candor?
They loved it, because it wasn't insulting. We weren't, it's your fault, we could have done that better. It was like, hey, there's no such thing as a perfect lap, right? In Formula One, you're trying to seek perfection. But even when you get it really good, you can still make it better, right? Like our race car right now, give us some time, we can still make it better. Talked to a racing driver. Lando thought, his last lap in Mexico was close to perfect. But if you said to him, could you have found a little bit more time? Yeah, I could have braked a little bit later here. So we're in the mindset where we know we're not perfect, even when we have a perfect result, that we left something on the table somewhere, and we want to learn from that. We want to know, we could have done that differently next time. We had some risk there that was unnecessary risk. So we usually figure it out ourselves. We don't kind of need the noise. Like, we know we could have done Silverstone differently. We hesitated. We actually had a game plan. We kind of didn't follow through with that game plan. So, but we listen. We're not arrogant.
Why would you not follow through if you had the plan there?
Well, I think we lacked a little bit of confidence, because our plan was a little bit different than everyone else's plan. And I think in hindsight, we kind of went, let's just do what the others are doing. And I think now we've got more confidence to, where before, you're always wondering who's going to have what tires on.
What about Japan this year?
Could have maybe done that differently. That's not one, Silverstone's one that sticks out that I think we made a few mistakes there. I think we lost that race a couple times, not just once. Japan, I think a bit more of a marginal call and letting drivers pass and things of that nature early in the season. But I think Silverstone's one that we would all sit there and go, actually, we made a few mistakes, not just one.
So you talk about you lack confidence and now you've gained it. How have you done that?
By trusting ourselves and going, actually, that was the right decision. And then if it wasn't the right decision, learning from it. So I think we've just gotten more confident. It'd been a while since we'd won races, and, now we've gone from being the hunter to the hunted, and that takes a little bit of a different mindset. But I think it's just confidence, communication, trust, and trusting our instinct.
See, that's a really interesting phrase, that idea of going from the hunted to being the hunter, or vice versa.
Yeah.
What's the biggest difference that's led to?
This is for me. This isn't necessarily how the team thinks, but for me, it's like being the hunter. It's more because you're the underdog and you're just playing offense the whole time. Being the hunted, for me personally, I feel like I'm playing defense and looking behind, and there's almost like a paranoia, and that's not.
Zach Brown feels to me more like a hunter.
Yeah, it's more
your instinct.
It's more my instinct, and it's just forward looking, and it's aggressive, and like, kind of don't screw it up. Is like and then you end up not playing offense because you're playing defense. You don't want to get passed because you're in front. Where when you're in second, you want to do the passing. So it's just purely mindset. There's actually zero difference whether you're racing for the lead as the hunted or second for the hunter, or you're running around in 15th. You're making the same decisions. So it actually shouldn't be any different, but you get the pressure and there's a lot on the line and you get expectations, and it's all a mental game.
So do you talk about that then?
Yeah, we talk about it quite a bit. And it's, there's a huge mental aspect to sport, right? When you get players in slumps, take a sport. It's like, here's a great player and he's had a slump. I haven't forgotten how to play. Just something's going on there and they need to get out of the slump. And I think sports teams can do the same thing.
So what do you do then to help?
I try and kind of stay calm and not get emotional, which is something that I've had to work on over the years. If I look back at my racing career, I was emotional in the race car. So I think what I've tried to do is kind of get the data, have the conversations. I'm also a big fan of not tackling issues in the moment unless you have to tackle them in the moment, right? Sunday night after a race is almost like, other than of course, you want to do a hot debrief, but it's like the worst time to tackle issues. The race has happened. You can't change anything. Trying to figure out at Silverstone Sunday night, you have your debrief, but you know what? Go sleep, get more data, talk it through. There's usually way more to the story than meets the eye, and then you can make a calm, you've slept, the adrenaline's out of the system. So that's what I've tried to do to kind of balance the emotion that sport creates, because that's what makes sport awesome, right? It's just raw emotion, whether you're on the field or you're in the grandstand. That's what we love about sport is, the World Series, which just ended. What an unbelievable, just full of emotion both ways, going to win, going to lose, extra inning, and that's awesome. But you got to be able to embrace it and in the moment, and then reflect back when you're kind of non-emotional to really make some learnings from it.
But obviously, we're now a few races from the end of the season. There's very little between your two drivers. Have you sort of prepared yourself for the fact that something's going to happen over the next few weeks and how you're kind of ready to deal with whatever that thing is?
Yeah, because I would be very surprised if this was just 4 boring races to the end. What I don't know is like what's going to happen, what's going to be exciting, what's going to be drama. So all I can do is kind of draw on what's worked, because we've had drama this year. So this might be magnified because of what's at stake with so few races left, but we'll just keep doing what we're doing. We're so focused, and we're not going to let emotion pull us off of just keep doing what you're doing. So if something pops up in Brazil or Abu Dhabi, or pick a race, it was the same thing in Abu Dhabi last year, 0.7 of a second. On Saturday, we were looking pretty good. First and second on the grid. Carlos was P3, P4. Charles is back in P17, P18. It's like turn 1, our whole world changed, but Lando's on fire. Oscar, you got to come up. We can't control what Ferrari's going to do. So let's just go win this race, and Oscar, make up as much ground as you can, and let's just do what we've done all year. And that's what we did. We didn't change our game. We didn't panic. We just, and when it came down to the final pit stop, which is my 0.7 of a second, we did a 2-second pit stop. Had we done a 2.7 second pit stop, Lando comes out in front of Carlos, but Carlos in his DRS, which is very powerful in the second sector. Carlos would have definitely got by him. would Lando have got him back? I would have liked to have thought so, but I'm so happy I didn't have to find out. And so here you have 24 races, all this going on, and it came down to 0.7 of a second. May have been the difference, because if Carlos wins and Lando doesn't win, we don't win the world championship. So that just shows also the attention to detail and every millisecond and every incremental gain, how much it counts, because you spend hundreds of millions of dollars, thousands of people, and 0.7 of a second was the what it came
And it
down
might
to.
be that tight again.
It could be.
You know, your brilliant management approach of let's just be really honest, open, and talk about the way the world is. What conversations are you having about the return to form of Max Verstappen and the fact that it's gone from over 100 points to not very many in just a few races?
I think with that, you know, in these conversations we've had with Oscar and Lando, just keep doing what you're doing. You know, we know the only way he beats us is if we beat ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, we've got the car, we've got the drivers, we've got the team. So does he, but he's 35, 36 points behind us. If we just all run our races, I think I'll have a hard time. If we wipe each other out, he's coming right through the front door, right? You know, 25 points for a win. You go have a bad Brazil, he wins. It's a different ball game. But we want to look forward and play offense. So we've had a lot of 1-2s this year. So the best way to keep Max out of the game is just go do another 1-2. Just, you know, when you guys figure out who's 1-2. So that's the conversation we're having, is actually forget about him, because you can't control. He's an unbelievable driver, a great team. Just go out, go lock up that front row.
You would take this pressure over the Red Bull approach of a team based around one driver
All day long.
rather, because obviously it was in 2008,
2007, we tied.
when McLaren tied both drivers on the same number of points.
Yep.
Fernando and Lewis lost the title
In comes Kimi.
to Kimi Räikkönen. I mean, that's the risk here, right?
That is the risk.
The shared
That
points
is the
could
risk.
cost you the Drivers' World
But
Championship.
we're prepared to take that risk for the fairness of our two drivers, for the purity of two drivers fighting equally for the championship. Yeah. We think it's what the fans want. We know it's what our drivers want. It's what our race team wants. It's what our sponsors want. We want, you know, my view is if you have two drivers fighting for the world championship, that's your best chance to win the constructors, if you can finish first and second. And I'd rather have two drivers fighting for the drivers' championship than one. And I realize that maybe be seen as putting them at a disadvantage because they're taking points off of each other. But that's racing. It's the pureness of racing. We're a two-car team. And so we are prepared. And all we want is to have known we've done our best. We know we're not perfect. We gave them equal opportunities, and may the best man win. And I just hope that's a papaya 1-2.
Amazing. Look, you've turned the team around. I think the biggest thing that you'll be remembered for, I think, is to take a car that was the worst on the grid, and the following season it wins the constructors. You'll be remembered for the fact the team was almost going bust when you arrived and you saved it. You'll be remembered for the fact that you had Fernando Alonso in a car that couldn't win anything, and he still describes you as the best team boss he ever had. I mean, you've done some amazing things. So to finish with, what do you look back on your time at McLaren, although I know it's not over yet, and think, you know what, the thing the public don't understand actually that I'm most proud of, that you want us to realise?
I think it's the team we've created and the two drivers. Here we are, 4 races from the end, 1 point, I mean, nothing. And we're so united as a team. That's what I'm most proud of. Forget about, I mean, I've loved the trophies and the spraying the champagne in Monaco. I get such a charge off of being part of the team. So I want people to think about McLaren. Zach was just on the team, but when you think of the great dynasties, there might have been bigger names and smaller names and different names on the team, but you think of the New York Yankees. And yes, they had some great, but I want people to think about what McLaren did. And yes, Andrea was on the team, and Pete Pedromo and Zach Brown and Laura Bowden and Chloe Todd and all they, it was because we all have made each other stronger. And that's why I think we're all operating at such a high level. is because of how well we're working together.
Zach, we wish you all the luck in the world.
Thank you very much. We'll need it.
And a brilliant book, by the way.
Thank you.
Thank you, man. That's great.
Cheers. Thank you.